There are so many issues that matter to me in this election cycle, from climate change to education reform, to criminal justice reform, to LGBTQ rights, to reproductive rights, to healthcare, to immigration. I could go on and on. There are many, many issues at stake right now.
For me, there are about 3 issues that have been at the forefront of my mind. They're not the only issues I hear about, but I have been thinking about them a lot. And those would be like the coronavirus response, women's rights, and healthcare.
Really care about, I guess, the COVID response. I think Trump has not done a great job at that at all. And I really hope after this election that issue will be somewhat resolved. And then, of course, I guess just Black Lives Matter, gay rights, all the rights. Climate change is huge.
The issues that mattered most to me in this election were probably immigration, since my parents are immigrants, and also general attitudes towards social prejudice.
I'm very passionate about immigration reform, education reform, and criminal justice reform.
Immigration reform, social justice reform, and equal rights, equal votes. America is a place of brotherhood, a land of opportunity, a melting pot. Everyone should have a voice if they have that right for that voice. As long as that's the case, then everyone should have that exact ideal. Everyone in America should be treated equal.
Healthcare is a really big one. I myself, have the privilege of being on my parents' healthcare and being pretty secure about that, but I have a lot of friends who aren't in similar situations and who would be really affected, say if the ACA was overturned. I guess access to family planning services, people's ability to marry freely, just a lot of social justice causes are really important to me, and just making sure that all people have equal rights and access to services, which seems like a really basic thing for a country to offer, but all of those things are kind of up in the air right now.
Healthcare, I have a pre-existing condition, and Biden has been the only one to release an actual plan to protect pre-existing conditions, COVID recovery, of getting it under control before we can have a vaccine, and then also effectively and fairly distributing a vaccine.
Racial justice and addressing the attacks on Black communities and Asian American individuals, especially in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic.
For me, in this election, it's really a referendum on emergency politics. And each establishment has already proven over these past 8 months that they've approached the COVID-19 pandemic very differently in how they've treated other countries, their own people. And for me, at least, there's a very clear choice as to which party has a firmer grasp on, a clearer grasp on its severity.
Definitely, I think the top one is coronavirus. The president's response to coronavirus is unbelievable, that he is bringing to his rallies fire Fauci when he's the leading scientist in infectious diseases in America. And all these other countries, when they have a spike in coronavirus cases, they try to handle it, but Trump doesn't really do that.
I don't trust Trump to handle it at all. I think we can clearly see that he bears the burden of the majority of the 210,000 plus lives that have been lost so far. And, by the end of this pandemic, it could be more than twice that, really.
Seeing what COVID did to this city really, it makes me furious, first of all. And not just at the president. I think the governor and the mayor definitely share some of the blame there. But I think sort of more broadly, after seeing the damage in New York and after seeing the scale of the death and the dislocation and the inequities that resulted from it, that there wasn't, even in reaction to that story, there wasn't even sort of much of a national level effort. It really makes my blood boil, I must say. It was just horrible here in the spring, and that's a memory that's going to last with a lot of people for a very long time. And I really feel quite strongly that I want to vote those who are responsible out.
this year has shown me that elections really do have consequences, and the consequences can be human lives. People have fully died because of this pandemic, and their lives could have been saved if the response had been proper. So at this point, it's not even a matter of rhetoric, it's a matter of human lives.
One of the issues that matters most to me is climate change. It is the most pressing existential threat that our country and the world faces. And it's shameful that we are the only developed country with a substantial political party that denies this truth, that climate change is human-induced and that it's a threat to our existence.
How about climate change, where one of the candidates doesn't even recognize its existence, or at the very least doesn't recognize that mankind is contributing to climate change?
I think the environment and global warming is a huge issue for me, so I'm very focused on how the candidates are planning to address that.
Second issue that is also very important, which really shouldn't be an issue, is the amount of legitimacy in our presidency.
Seeing how Trump has handled COVID and just the racism and disregard for human life, and the way that he'll speak about Black Lives Matter protests as these awful riots and just like terrorist groups, basically.
Donald Trump is making us the laughing stock of the entire world. He's cozying up to dictators in North Korea and Russia and China, and writing love letters to Kim Jong-un, whereas Joe Biden actually cares about the actions of world leaders, not just how much they flatter him.
In general, I don't stand for a president that prioritizes politics, that is, his own political interests, over the well-being of his constituents.
Can't understand, from my view and where I'm sitting, why anyone would want to re-elect this person.